Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and hey man, chapter 213. Guys, I am so excited to talk to you guys about this chapter. This is pretty much, what's been on people's minds for the last couple of weeks. Heck, from the way back when with the All Might superpower video where I alluded to it in that video. It's just a great time to see it happening here. I'm very happy that this has happened. We're going to talk all about that for Hero Academia chapter 213. Wow. Okay, so housekeeping notes, because the last chapter video was, I found it a really fun video. There were a lot of great comments and I read quite a few. I do want to say thank you to everyone that got involved. I just want to make it clear again, these are just videos talking about a series that I really enjoy. I honestly don't mind being wrong and I don't mind being corrected, and a lot of you had good points to put out there. So I will always welcome that. Not a really big deal for that. If you guys want specific answers to the last chapter videos, a lot of comments, whether it be the thing with Ochako or things revolving around Shinso, although we'll cover that since it's kind of important here. Just stick around till the end of the video once we're done talking about this chapter. I will also try to make this go by very quickly, and the final note is I am trying merch. Or merchandise. I hate calling it merch. I will leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. It helps the channel, but it's a test a trial run. Anyway, I am excited. This is the best. Okay, I don't know where to start with this. I guess let's just start with the play-by-play of the chapter. By far, the coolest parts are definitely the stuff with Black Whip. We're gonna call them Black Whip, just because I think that was totally cool. This makes sense. It makes so much sense. Like, think about it. One for All was based on the premise that two quirks came together and mutated. It's standard to reason that if you move that quirk and you put it onto someone with another quirk, not only do you have the stockpile effect, increasing the chances, the idea of a mutation happening made total sense to me. Right, so I'm very happy that this happened because this makes sense. Now, the chapter also seemed that it was going to make moves towards letting us see what would happen if Monoma touches Izuku. Mind you, seeing the pages here for this chapter, I'm not really sure if Monoma succeeded in touching Izuku, because I don't really see a sound effect that says he did, and it looks like he missed because Izuku dodged it. So I don't know. I would love to see how this copy would work. You guys know I made like a little Monoma video a while back. I would love to see what exactly happens there, but I'm gonna remain cautiously optimistic. Other little notes, Shinso, this is having to do with a lot of the big comments. Last week, a lot of you guys were coming in with all your different ideas or interpretations to how Shinso's powers could work, and I legitimately did not consider some of the ones that you guys brought up, like the fact that Izuku this time wanted the quirk to stop and that could be influenced, or even the simple fact that Shinso's quirk was stronger. That said, I think this chapter did provide a very good reason. That being that the quirk was effectively Izuku's at this point. So my struggle was that I saw this too much as the quirk being separate from Izuku, and I think that's where my big bias was. Because I saw it like that, I couldn't process or couldn't see it properly, the fact that Izuku is in control of this quirk. And so the explanation that the guy gave here about Izuku's judgment being clouded, I really love that. I think that's a really nice explanation. In terms of the idea of One for All powering the quirk as well and making it stronger, I love that too. That tells me, if we were going to like break down Black Whip, it seems to me then that for the One for All mechanic to work well, you could say that Black Whip, let's just say it was a standard user without the stockpile in it, maybe Black Whip is able to exert about as much force as the user is able to exert with his arms or something. So, if the whip hits you, it would hit you with the same force that a guy could punch with. So when you consider Izuku at 100% One for All, because we know that he's not controlling Black Whip's power output, it does make sense that the Black Whip would hit with 100% punch. That's how I'm interpreting the whole Black Whip stuff. Otherwise, I really love it. I think it's really cool. I like the quirk. I love seeing a restraint-based quirk on that. Although, it is a bit of a long-range quirk. So, I'm excited to see how Izuku uses it. I would love it if Izuku uses it in this chapter, or sorry, in the upcoming chapters. Since Shinso is also using a whip type material, I would love to see just some long distance play, although Izuku has an unfair advantage here. Any other things that we need to count here? Well, it's great that Izuku has 6 other quirks to discover. That's going to do a lot for the character, and that's going to alleviate the big concern of One for All being a boring quirk. Just going to go through the chapter really quick to make sure I don't miss any other little details. The idea of One for All growing, that's pretty cool. I'm not really sure what to make of the core of One for All. I understand that if it swells, that means it's getting stronger, but I don't really understand where that idea is going to take us, or, you know, I don't have a clear vision of that right now. But if you guys have any thoughts on that, feel free to let me know down below. Anyway, the first couple of pages really are the best ones, but I think once we get out of that initial little bit of the introspection, I think it becomes a little bit a little bit less exciting, just because now it's going into like the full battle scenes. And while we do get some really pretty shots, I'm not gonna lie, the first bit was really exciting. It is cool to see everyone there using their quirks, but let's face it, that first bit was really exciting. So you know, I've just read it, so I'm still a little bit in that afterglow of reading that first little bit. But yeah, it's so good. I'm so happy with it. I think it's a slick explanation. I think it's a slick development. I like it. This is something that makes sense within the logic of Hero Academia. I like the Shinso reasoning, or I like the interpretation of Izuku's quirk by the way that the Black Whip user showed it off. So that's all good. And also, I remember there was a commenter that mentioned last week that it could be that that the vestiges were on like recorded messages, but in this chapter it seems that we saw that they are not recorded messages, that they are able to actually adapt and console or give Izuku advice. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think it was Talowolf that mentioned it. So Talowolf, thanks for that comment, but I guess we got a proper answer here. If it wasn't Talowolf that said that, my apologies. Anyway, let's start talking about some of the bigger story implications coming out of this, because now with this thing being officially confirmed for One for All, there's good things and bad things coming out of this, and it all revolves around My Hero Academia as a product. So after seeing this chapter, I feel way more confident in predicting Hero Academia. And what I mean by that is, with this, I think we've shifted, or not shifted, but I think it's been made apparent that you can try to predict Hero Academia as according to Shonen Jump convention. And so with Izuku getting 6 other quirks to discover, this was for me, I felt it was a matter of time. Ever since we saw Izuku hitting 100% with Eri, I felt it was a matter of time that they were going to do something different with Izuku. And that really comes in from just the fatal flaw of quirks when it comes to My Hero Academia as a product that has to catch readers' attentions. The big problem with One for All was that super strength is boring. I know everyone in the Hero Academia universe is going to say, oh, that's a really flashy quirk. I mean, you can change the weather. But really, it's a boring power. That's been what it's been about since the beginning. Look, man, the fact that the author was able to market and sell Full Cowl as a mode when it's really just training wheels is a mark of the guy's ability to write. But at the same time, it's training wheels. People got excited about training wheels. And mind you, again, I think it's really cool that the author was able to pull it off. But look at how many things had to go into Full Cowl. Not only did he have to deal with the idea of Izuku actually being able to do stuff without breaking it, he also added a lot of fancy bells and whistles to that power. Like the little sparks that happen. Heck, when Izuku hit 100%, you know, Izuku kind of went Super Saiyan according to like what we saw in the pages. So, you know, there were always these little visual flares that the author was trying to do to make One for All seem more exciting. But because of serial escalation in Shonen Jump, or in Shonen Jump series, like, you know, the idea that things are going to continue getting more exaggerated and there's going to be more and more hard enemies to fight, because of that, the moment that the author went too far with 100%, it became old news, right? It's not going to be as exciting when you see Izuku using 20% full cowl, because you have the idea, you've seen Izuku at his limits. And the author does do good jobs with adding in extra bells and whistles, like Izuku getting to use long distance aerial attacks. You know, that's something that, again, you gotta appreciate that the author was able to do as much with One For All's vanilla version before he had to go into this route. The point of this part is just to say that the author, given the way that he had developed One For All up till this point, he just wasn't going to be able to make an exciting series for the long term if he kept things the way they were. We've seen 100%'s limits. We've seen what it can do at 100% just full power. There was just no making that more exciting. Again, props to him for making the development towards 100% very interesting. But I think this is way, like, yeah, this is totally Shonen Jump. Just all of a sudden throwing in another power there, that's totally Shonen Jump. When they need to excite people, they're gonna give you brand new powers and new modes for characters to use. This is just textbook Shonen Jump. And so with this, with last week's Ochako development, which overall I think was good, but I just think in terms of the Shonen Jump formulas and just the conventions that they use, I do see this as the author is being more and more guided into Shonen Jump conventions. Like, what initially got me on the idea that we would eventually get quirks for the other users in Izuku or the other vestiges, that was gonna happen, that came primarily from just the idea that I have no faith in Shonen Jump just keeping this power. It's just because that's not what they do. They've never done this. Their thing is give characters new modes and new abilities, or like new forms or whatever they can to make things more exciting. That's been like their easy calling card. Now the second flaw, we're still talking about the flaws with quirks here. Pretty simple. Quirks are just too limited. And yes, you know, when you're talking with other fans, you could be like, oh yeah, man, like it's cool that these guys have such, you know, limited powers, really encourages creativity. And that's cool and all, but that's not really what we end up seeing when it comes to what the author does to make things exciting. And the best example of this is to just demonstrate the villains. It doesn't really get too bad at muscular, but at All For One, All For One's first fight was not too bad, because it was the first, or not the first, but the second, because technically there was Nomu before that. But we got All For One, then we moved into Overhaul, then we got Gentle and La Brava, which I think is probably the shining star in this next section, and we got, after that, the Nomu that fought Endeavor. Guys, look at those 4 main villains, and look at their quirks real quick. All For One has a lot of quirks. He can cause a ton of damage. Chizaki had a very versatile quirk. He could earthbend, he could heal people, he can fuse himself with people, and he ended up with 2 more quirks by the end of the fight. La Brava and Gentle did it the hero team up way, but like that was a really good one, really creative. But at the end of the day, you had Gentle, who had a relatively versatile quirk, but then he got super powered by having La Brava's power up quirk with him. And finally, you had the Nomu, which is just a collection of quirks that was able to do as much damage as All For One was able to do. We know that that's reported in the story. The conclusion is simple. Quirks suck. They are not good for ramping up the suspense when it comes to villains. The author knows this and has instead been giving us villains who have either very versatile quirks or just have more than one quirk. Right now, it seems like what makes villains scary in the author's mind is their capability to wield more than one quirk. So what does that mean for the future? Well, the League of Villains, or whatever you want to call them, they are still a beacon of hope, because as long as they are around and as long as they don't get extra quirks, they are still under the Gentle classification. So instead of them just being overpowered with a bunch of different quirks, they could still make up the difference by just working together, and that's always worthwhile to see in manga when villains work together to be really scary. If we get more of that, that will be great. If the author, however, can't do that and we go off to more one-off villains, there's a very high chance that whenever we're dealing with one-off villains, they're just going to have multiple quirks, because that's going to be how the author just drums up the suspense. And when I say villains, I mean like the main arc villain, not like the mooks or the ones that anyone else fights off with. It's specifically the ones that are the principal focus for the arc. It's just the nature of quirks, I think, is just not very compatible with the stereotypical Shonen Jump approach to their battle series. And that's where a lot of my doubts are coming out. And so whenever I see like things like last week's chapter or this week's chapter and then moving Izuku into this new area of discovery, it's like, it's cool and exciting within the context of the series, but I do feel like the hand of Shonen Jump is a bit more noticeable in those moments. And with that, speaking of Shonen Jump conventions, let's very quickly address Ochako from last week. Alright, so, you know, I've had a lot of time to digest, and I'm going to make this as simple as I can to understand where I'm coming from. Last week I led with Ochako is about money. I really should have explained that more, because what I was really trying to say is just that was the character that was presented to me. And so to see all of a sudden this other aspect of the character, I just found it kind of weird. The money was just the beginning of it, but it was just part of the bigger package. The big issue here with Ochako, or at least the way I saw it last week, was last week, or not last week, but the last chapter, chapter 212, established that from the very young age, Ochako was the kind of person who would help people no matter how much trouble they were in. That is the part that really doesn't jive with my current understanding of Ochako's character. And it really culminates in just this idea, like, Ochako throughout the series of Hero Academia has been a character that's been about finding her heroic identity. Whereas this chapter, chapter 212, made it seem as though she had a heroic identity or like a heroic trait somewhere inside her. But here's the thing, the character that's telling me that since she was a child, she was the kind that believed that she should help people no matter how much trouble they were in, I haven't seen that character. The most critical moment she had was when everyone was getting ready to go save Bakugo. And what did Ochako do? Nah, she just called everyone off. That doesn't really seem like someone who would help someone no matter how much trouble they were in. And mind you, that being a bit harsh, you could always say like, well, no, she was trying to do the best in that situation. Yeah, but that trait doesn't really mesh well with this new information. And so my big point was that it seemed like this trait that the author gave Ochako about helping people no matter how much trouble they were in seems to have been something that came in later in her character design as opposed to earlier. And so what that made it in my eyes was that this was a retcon or a retroactive continuity, that the author was saying that this was something that was there the whole time. Whereas I'm feeling that, no, not really. The character arc that you established for Ochako doesn't really lead into this statement. Now, mind you, there's no winners or losers here. Like, I still think Ochako's development is still very good. This is just a matter of pointing out like a weird thing. It's just, at the end of the day, I feel a bit weird about it. And that's just it. One thing I do want to just leave you with is that when season 3 happened, that was where we had the Bakugo moment. And I did run a little bit of a poll on that, and let me tell you, man, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be the only person that is gonna point out the weirdness of that monologue when they call back to that moment, because from the polls that we got from that time period, there were enough people that felt that Ochako crossed the line. So I'm not the only one that finds that's gonna end up finding that line strange if it gets pointed out. I did like how he tied back Ochako's family, because Ochako's family is a big part of her character, and he did really well last week. It's just I question Ochako's philosophy, and like if we were to make this a black and white situation, it's either you have to say that, you know, this is a retcon, so there's going to be some little problems if you look at her character earlier, or you allow that, hey, this means that she was kind of all talk when she was establishing this little fact, which is okay, because part of growing is learning to be able to match your talk with your actions, and there's nothing wrong with Ochako doing this. This was just an issue of talking about whether or not this was in her character design from the beginning, or if it was added in later. Like I said, I don't think there's any winners or losers. It's just a discussion point. Still, I loved everyone who chimed in for that. I really love seeing all those conversations. Anyway, guys, a lot of topics, but that's pretty much it for me. I am done. Thanks for watching. I hope you didn't take too much time on this video, but yeah, guys, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day, and I will be on the comments for the next day or two, and I will be reading. So if you want to like have a discussion, just comment down below and I'll catch it within the 2 days. Anyway, guys, Till next time, have a great day.